Okay,
Okay.
so mobility.
My name is Amy Johnston and I coach mobility at House Fitness in Kendal. And I teach yoga for athletes and in sport, and I'm a classically trained yoga teacher.
Amy's going to run us through some tests. So these are the screening tests that you can do, and we'll talk about how to grade it, and then you can check that off on the PDF that you'll have on your email. Okay, so first one.
Okay, so first one is sit and reach. So what we're trying to test here is the range that you have or don't have or have a little bit of in the back of your body. So we're looking at lower back, glutes, hamstrings, down to calf muscles, although they don't come into it quite so much. You're going to feel it more as a lower back hamstring thing. So you need to make sure that your sit bones are on the ground and that you are in what I'd call the neutral position. So your pelvis isn't slung under, neither is it in a anterior tilt. So neither is it tilted the other way, which
It's hard.
it's hard, exactly. So toes are pointing to the ceiling, but relax. So making sure that you're not drawing your toes back towards you. So we will give you a fighting chance and that you inhale your arms over your head and exhale, relax your shoulders, and then coming into a forward fold, hinging at the hip. So if you bring your palms down, we just want to see where the fingertips are. So without curling your toes back towards you, because that's cheating. If your fingertips are before your toes, then we're going to call that a bit of a red flag area. If Johnny's fingertips were just brushing the tips of his toes, excellent, then we're going to say, yeah, pretty good, so-so. If the fingertips move beyond the toes, we're into sort of a positive result without too much strain into a sort of a positive result. So that's a good thing. It's like, yeah, showing some fairly decent range in the back of the body there. So you can come back up, Johnny.
So the grading for this is before the toes.
Yeah.
If you can't reach your toes, then that's red flag. Mm-hmm. If you can reach your toes, then that's amber. You could do some more work. And if it's past, let's say, the length of your finger.
Yeah.
So if it's cool. Past the length of your finger onto your toe, I'll bend my knee so that I'm not that flexible. Obviously, amber, I need some work. So you're going to reach, if you pass that, then maybe it's an area that you don't necessarily need to focus on. Cool. So test number 2.
Test number 2, we have got some spinal extension. So in a lot of our sports, whether it's in the gym or on the bike or many other sort of different sports, even in a sort of sedentary lifestyle, we end up a lot in this kind of sort of forward rounded position. So we want to be able to get into some extension in the sort of upper back. Okay, so we just want to see where we're at with that. So if you go onto your belly, this is the test. So Johnny's going to bring his elbows under his shoulders and his palms to the ground. And he's going to make sure his hips, the front of his hips are on the ground. Okay. And as he rises up onto the forearms, he's also going to make sure that his lowest ribs remain on the ground. Harder than you think. So seeing if you can get some extension here through his thoracic spine, okay? Keeping those forearms on the ground. And we're basically going to go with yes or no on this one. So either his hips are on the ground, his low ribs are on the ground, and he's able to come up to the forearms, or when he comes up to the forearms, he can't keep the ribs on the ground and or the hips, okay?
So an identifier of a position that's not ideal is that, as Amy said, if your ribs come off the ground, or even worse so, your hips come off the ground while you're on your forearms, then that's going to be a red flag for extension through the spine.
Absolutely, yeah.
Cool. Okay, so that's a yes or no checkbox.
Onto a bit of dorsiflexion. So what that basically means is how much flexion do you have through the ankle, okay? So for this, you're going to need a wall. We're using the rig. And again, we've got sort of 3 different measures here. We've got the kind of red flag, the amber, and the good to go. So first of all, Johnny's going to check down on one knee with toes of the other foot against the rig or the wall. So he's going to make sure that his knee is lined up, well, his hip and his knee. So just moving a little bit round this way, perhaps a touch more. That's it, perfect. So you're well aligned, toe and knee are lined up, and then just bringing the knee towards the wall or towards the rig. So we're looking at the dorsiflexion here in the ankle. So yeah, Johnny can do that comfortably. So that's...
So if you can't get your knee to the wall, or the upright, then that is definitely a red flag area, which suggests that you need to work on that urgently.
Absolutely, yeah.
So an amber is that you can get your knee to the wall, and then...
So we're going to go 3 fingers.
So measuring yourself 3 fingers from the wall,
That was what we said.
big toe, 3 fingers, pushing forwards. Can you reach the wall?
And then if you want to take it one little stage further,
Yep.
you can go whole hand, including the thumb.
So palm, including the thumb.
Yeah, width
Yeah.
of the hand. And
Push.
then have you got...
No.
Yeah, so
that's 4 gradings for this one, because it is very important for riders to have good dorsiflexion. It's important now that we can prioritize out of 4. So some of these are a yes and no, because we want you to be at a particular level, but this one is graded so that then you can prioritize depending on where you are. And ideally, like I need to work a tiny bit more, that's absolutely fine, but I know that I'm not at the ideal position. So yeah.
And something like dorsiflexion as well is really important when it comes to your lifting. So squatting, back squat, front squat, anything that involves that flexion through the ankle as well. So you move better, lift better.
So you may wonder about some of these tests on mobility, and it's not necessarily always so that you can be in an optimum position on the bike, but also training optimally and risk-free as well. Because if you can get better positions whilst training, you then become more efficient and effective and safer at training. You can do more in less time, your performance raise, therefore you're better on your bike.
Looking at plantar flexion now, so opposite of dorsiflexion. So it's, I suppose, the position of almost kind of pointing the toe. Yeah, so lengthening through the ankle, if you will. So for this one, it's a sort of a yes or no. Either you can get the top of your feet, the tops of your feet and ankles on the ground without a visible gap, or you're going to feel for a gap, or you can't. Okay, so Johnny's going to set his bum back down against his heels, keeping his heels in line, not allowing them to splay out or fall in. And then he's going to simply check with his fingers just to see if there's any space under the front of his ankle and the top of his foot. Okay, so that's great. Nice range of motion there.
You will, if you tight here, it will be a painful position, won't it?
Absolutely, yeah.
So don't force it to try and stretch out and prove that you have that. Just sit down until you're into a comfortable position. And if it's tight here, you can fit fingers through, and it's something to work on. So don't force it just for the sake of ticking the box. It would be better to be honest with yourself and find something to work on.
Okay, so we're going on to seated groin opener. So testing the range of motion in the groins and to some extent the adductors, the inner thigh muscles, whilst your hips are in flexion, so there's a bend at the hip. So soles of the feet together, heels in towards the groin, sit bones on the ground, sitting nice and tall. So what we're looking for is the distance between the knees. Okay, so if your distance between your knees is from your elbow to the tips of your fingers, then or less, or if your knees are closer together, then that's a red flag area.
You're basically fucked.
Yeah, you got some tight groins right there.
Yeah.
So that's our first measure. So that's our red flag. You need to do something about it as soon as possible. Okay.
After that, we're looking at 45 degrees. So this might be subjective. You might need a mirror or some help from someone. But basically the angle here, looking at 45 degrees, I'm going to call it amber.
Yeah, that's moderate. And then anywhere basically with the knees dropping below that point.
Maybe you could do it.
Anywhere with the knees dropping below that point, so below that 45 degree angle, we're going for all good to go.
Flexible.
Yeah. Lying on your back, just lengthen both legs out long. So what we're trying to see here is getting a little bit of information about how tight the glutes are. Also getting a bit of information about how kind of nippy and tight the hip flexors are coming into flexion. So Johnny, if you just draw your left knee into your chest and take hold of it, what we're looking to see is how close the front of that thigh moves in towards the chest. As Johnny draws it in, not with excessive force, but he's going to have to use a little bit of effort to draw that thigh into the chest. We're going to go for a yes or no on this one. So either the thigh is fairly snug in towards the chest, or...
Would you say it contacts the bottom rib?
Yeah.
Yeah?
I'd say that that and some more, preferably.
And some more. I'm only saying that because I want to pass.
Yeah. And just making sure as well that we haven't got too much rise in the other leg, in the lengthened leg, so you can see the movement can start to distort as well if that other leg rises. So just being aware of that.
Swap legs. So you
yeah, so you try both sides. So yeah, drawing that knee into the chest. Maybe I'll just have a little go as well.
Yep.
And we can see.
Just show how flexible you can be.
So again, I've got to have a little bit of give in my glutes to do this as well. And also I'm getting information about what's going on in the hip flexor.
Okay. So I would grade myself there as a red flag area, particularly tight. So there's no contact of my thigh on rib or chest. If there's no contact, that's a no. If you make some contact, that's a yes. And then it's subjective after that. You can get more flexible if you so choose.
What we're looking for is some minimums here.
Absolutely. So we're getting some information here about the quads, the front of the thigh. Johnny is going to bring one foot in towards his bum. He might need to separate his knees to catch his foot, okay? I'd say kind of first thing here is, can you catch your foot? Yeah, if that's like sending you into mass cramp, yeah, then that's already a pretty big red flag. Yeah, so just having that range to be able to catch the foot. And then just wriggle the knees back together and send the hips into the ground. So we need to make sure the front of the hips are in the ground. And then, again, with some sort of force, but not, excessive force, drawing the heel in towards your bum, in towards your butt cheek, basically. Okay, so we're going to go for a yes and no on this. Ideally, you can get a little bit of contact between your heel and your bum.
So if you're nowhere near, it's a definite no.
Definite no, yeah.
If you're making contact, but you have to be in a shaking position because there's so much tension, let's also call that a no because it's excessive force to get there.
I'm going to add in one more no, is if you have to bring the knee out and sort of distort the alignment of the position in order to find that contact.
So it has to be a clean angle with minimal, some pressure, but not excessive force.
Yeah, if you can get there to begin with.
Great. Shoulders, we're just doing a global test here. So it's testing both shoulders at the same time. We're going to go for a yes or a no. Can you reach your fingers from one side to the other? So if you can't touch there, we'll call that a no. So you need to do some work on it. Okay, so that's all of the screening tests demonstrated. So you now have an idea of red flag areas that you need to work on. If you're green on everything, then that means that you can probably just do mobility as a holistic thing. So you can hit all areas or whatever's feeling tight that day. If you have red flag areas, then they're the things that you should start with, but don't neglect the rest. And of course, a really big thing about this is testing both sides so that if there's imbalance in between sides, then you need to even that out. Even if you're tight everywhere and you have a particular tight area, it might be that you're very mobile on one side over the other, and that's likely to cause you more issues than being super tight on both sides. So make sure that imbalance is corrected first before you then start attacking flexibility on both sides.
Yeah.
So on to how to actually get more flexible in the positions that we've identified you might have areas in.
Okay.
Okay, let's take a break.
Yeah, I was like, whoa, need to check that.